everyone. Thank you for being here and for listening. And welcome to the First Gen Pre-PA podcast and YouTube channel. Part of being a first generation student is not having the same access to connections, mentorship, or opportunities within the medical field, and the loneliness, jealousy, and frustration that this could bring us. Lonely in the ways that it feels like everyone around you had been given the backbone to success, and you were the only one falling behind, and jealous of the classmates and their familial background to education and medicine, giving them a parent who could mentor them along their pre-PA paths, while your parents had no other choice but to leave you to walk on this journey all on your own. These feelings are almost universal amongst first generation students, and thinking that you're walking on this pre-PA journey alone gets incredibly lonely. However, our platform is here to help. Today, we will answer your questions on the process of not having the connections within the PA field and the suggestions and steps to take into building your own network. We hope that this episode proves that what once seemed impossible is now becoming reality for first generation students everywhere. Thank you for listening. Now let's continue with this week's second episode with the authentic PA, also known as PA student Danielle Oth. Okay, hi everyone. So today I am honored to have first year PA student Danielle Oth, founder of the Authentic PA Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube pre-PA mentorship platforms. Danielle has given us a glimpse of the present day hardships that come with being a first generation pre-PA undergraduate student. Through her undergrad years until her first PA school application cycle and acceptance into PA school, Danielle realized there was a lack of resources out there for her own journey. Determined to educate the pre-PAs in her footsteps, Danielle has devoted her experience, education, and time to continue paving the path for pre-PA students on how she went about learning to afford the PA school application costs, how to obtain volunteer and PCE experience, appropriate and successful resume templates, pre-PA anxieties, and more on her social media platforms. Through her authentic posts, Danielle normalizes and addresses these feelings of loneliness and feeling lost as we start our pre-PA journeys, but guides us with specific steps that she has seen help her and the pre-PAs around her. So thank you so much for giving me today, Danielle. I know you are incredibly busy with your first year of PA school, but it truly means a lot to have you here because you were one of the first pre-PA mentorship Instagrams that I ever followed and came across.
Oh, that's awesome.
But it just showed me a lot to see your recent journey into the PA profession and how you broke things down and navigated each aspect of our applications. So your page was really a source of comfort, especially because I was so overwhelmed starting the entire process.
Yeah, I know. It can be a little overwhelming at first, but these pages are meant to help you guys and to, guide you throughout the process and to ask and answer all your questions.
Right. So just because this is a first gen student org, I wanted to ask a few questions about your first gen identity as well. So seeing your success into getting accepted into PA school, it really is fuel for all of us first gen pre-PAs to continue pushing through the barriers and especially to have a mentor prove that it is possible.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question that I have is, what is your background as a first generation PA student?
Yeah, of course. So, my parents never went to college, their parents never went to college, nothing like that. So, but I was surrounded by friends who had parents that went to college and who had older siblings that did it. So I knew what college might have looked like, but I never had guidance on what it actually was like. Um, but my parents always pushed me to go to college because, they wanted me to have a really great future for myself that I wouldn't ever have to, depend on something financially. They wanted me to build a great future for myself that way. And so I mainly kind of got into medicine when I was younger at my pediatrician's office, but no one in my family ever practiced medicine. So I wasn't, used to that kind of profession. But, my parents supported me. They supported my decision to going into a biomedical science tech program during my high school years. And that kind of prompted me to follow that medicine path. Um, but it was a little difficult navigating the whole college application process when I first started out. Um, I did have some like advisors in my high school that helped me throughout the process with finding like good scholarships to apply to and what kind of colleges are looking for, how to be competitive, because my parents, while they are supportive and very helpful, but they didn't know how to go through that process or to help me through that.
Right.
Um, so that was a little difficult navigating, but being in college at that point was a little difficult navigating as well because, like I said, I know what college might have looked like on the outskirts from movies or shows or through like my friends' older siblings, but I never knew what it was going to be like myself. I didn't know how hard it was going to be going into college,
Right.
how difficult things might have been to like navigate that. So that was a little difficult. And when I decided to switch my major to exercise science, because I wanted to follow the PA profession, that was a whole nother thing. Because again, no one knew what a PA was in my family. No one knew how to go about that. So
Right.
it was what I had to say about that, about being a first generation PA student and college student, is that it definitely is difficult navigating at the start, but if you know where to ask for help, your advisors, your teachers, your professors, if your friends have family members that might be, in the same profession that you might be looking for and they can help you, just knowing where to ask for help can go a long way, and not being afraid to ask questions definitely helped me throughout this process.
Right. Awesome. We have incredibly similar backgrounds. It was so crazy hearing all of that because, like,
Uh-huh.
our backgrounds are so mirrored. So it was nice hearing you say all of that too.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. My second question is, do you feel that being first gen going into medicine in your family had set you back on the playing field compared to other peers who had family members in medicine?
So I thought that at first. I definitely did because, I knew kind of what medicine would maybe look like from watching, like Grey's Anatomy or other things, but I never heard like actual concrete stories. Whereas, my peers or my PA friends now who have parents that are in the medical field or siblings, they got to see, certain procedures being done or hear about it firsthand.
Right.
Whereas me, it's kind of all fiction to me at that point, until I started working in the actual medical field as a medical assistant. But yeah, so they definitely had a little bit more knowledge on the fact, and they kind of got to see what their family's work-life balance was in the medical field. And, I never understood that. But I will say, like, starting PA school, it was intimidating being around friends that had all their family members in either med school or they were a doctor, a nurse, or their parents were surgeons or something like that. It was very intimidating because I
Right.
thought, but I will say that everyone starts on the same starting line in PA school. It might be intimidating to know people that might have had an advantage, an upper hand, but everyone starts at the same playing level. And you will actually get to see along like your years in PA school. I mean, I'm only done my first semester, but everyone starts off the same. And some people might have strengths because of their background that will push them a little bit farther in the beginning, but others might have a different strength in a different area of study that we're studying at the moment that might help them progress later on. And we all help each other. So there's no disadvantage or advantage you'll actually see once you're actually in PA school. So
Right.
that was really enlightening to see when I started.
Right. My third question is, what do you think are the biggest barriers first gen students experience when pursuing a career in the PA profession?
Yeah, so I would probably say that, having a limited connection probably hurts a little bit because when I asked some of my friends who are in Peace School, like how they got their shadowing hours or how they got their like PCE jobs, a lot of them who had, medical backgrounds with their family said that they got it through them,
Right.
which was definitely a little annoying to hear because some people that don't have that, like myself, you have to do so much extra groundwork to do all your studying and researching to see where you can get into, who can you shadow. So
Right.
that was definitely a limitation, for sure. And also, I think just like the financial aspect to it too. Like people who are in PA school now, they who had people in their family that went to PA school told them how to budget, how to save, how to plan for PA school, which definitely helped them in the long run for saving for their semesters. Whereas I didn't expect PA school to be this expensive and taking out more loans. So that was definitely another limitation. But again, they're just slight limitations. They're not pushbacks, and you can always ask for help and more guidance where it's needed.
Right. So I know you said in PA school you all help each other out,
Mhm.
but how often did you think about your ability to be as successful as a peer um, when you were in your undergrad years?
Yeah, so I definitely had some doubts. I didn't think that my knowledge would have been as better or more better than someone else's who might have like a background in it already or already has some great insight to the medical profession itself. So I definitely had some doubts starting out. Um, but I think what helped me was whenever I felt like I was doubting myself, I would throw myself into another project. Like I would try to help lead on my pre-PA organization. So I would get more knowledge about the profession, or, I'd get more volunteer hours so I could get more experience. Because the main thing about it is, I mean, it's easy to self-doubt yourself. But as long as you're trying and you're motivated to learn and grasp new concepts, if you're always willing to learn, you're gonna be okay and you're gonna get that advantage. Some people that think that they come from a medical background already, or somebody that has a lot of siblings or family members in college that already went through the process, think that they might not have to try as hard because they have this insight that they already know what it's like. And some could say that could be a disadvantage. So always try and always put your best foot forward to learn and grasp more concepts so that you can be as competitive as you can when you're along people that might have a more extensive background than you.
Right. Wow, I really liked hearing your perspective on that. That was really
Yeah,
nice.
no, of
Okay.
course.
So these questions really give us a glimpse of this main segment, which is not having the connections within the PA field and how to build your own network.
Mhm.
So, not having this familial history to education and direct network to your career is what I think is the biggest obstacle for any first generation student. It's a lot of pressure how much work and responsibility first generation students have to endure at such a young age, to have been the first in your family to graduate high school or attend college or applying to PA school, and not having those close connections and easy access to anyone in the medical field. So, based on your Instagram and a conversation that we had about overcoming not having this foundation of success as first generation students, I thought that your personal guidance and steps and suggestions that have been successful for you and your acceptance into PA school would have been the best perspective to hear from for this episode. So, yeah, let's
Awesome.
get
Thank
started
you.
on this. Of course. So, one of the most important aspects of our PA application is our patient care experience. And PCE hours are just hospital or hospital related clinic jobs that aid in gaining clinical exposure before starting PA school. It really just ensures that pre PA applicants have a basic understanding of healthcare practices, which in turn increases the success in intense PA programs. So, these jobs could really just be like nursing, medical assistants like you had,
Mhm.
paramedics, physical therapy aides, phlebotomists, and the list really just carries on. So, hearing about all of this is definitely overwhelming. And it's difficult to figure out where to start and like what kind of jobs to look for. And more importantly, how do we get these patient care experience jobs? Who do we ask if we don't have any connections within any hospitals? So, um, we can talk about how you went about um, this
Sure.
these questions. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, um, like I said before, when I switched halfway through college, my my major and I decided I wanted to become a PA, I knew I was going to have to get a lot of hours to apply to PA school if I wanted to apply at the end of my senior year. So that was definitely stressful because I
Right.
know, not all schools require the same amount of hours, but the average is around, 1,000 to 2,000. So, where I started was at the pre-PA organization at my school. They had a lot of volunteer roles at local like nonprofit organizations that had a medical background. So I started there. I started volunteering there, which counted towards patient care experience because I was in the back office of these medical nonprofit clinics. And from there, I also got some insight from one of the workers at this clinic to say that one of our nearby hospitals, they also do volunteer roles, which also counts as patient care experience if you're actually taking care of the patient, which I realize a lot of hospitals do. It's just not marketed. So I would really encourage people if they're just starting out, if they're not certified or if they don't already have like a medical job at the moment and they're searching for something to do, I would really advise to start looking at hospitals in your area to see if they have a volunteer program and start there and you can apply and reach out to their coordinator. Or if you want to look at medical nonprofit clinics in your area, they're always willing to have volunteers join them. And that's a great stepping stone for sure. And it looks really good on applications too, towards volunteer hours as well. Um, Another thing is I wanted to do some more medical work, so I tried to be a medical assistant. I wasn't certified, and I know um, it's kind of time consuming to be certified with some money as well because it's like I think like 8 weeks for some courses, and some of them are like $800 or more, and I just didn't have time for
Right.
that in my schedule. But I knew if I applied to private practices, they were more willing to hire me because of the credentials and the liability, because they are more likely to hire someone that's not certified because they can train them on the job and they can kind of mold you into what they need. So I would definitely advise somebody if they're not certified, but they want to work as a medical assistant, a patient tech, um, an ER tech, if they want to apply. I mean, ER tech is its own thing, but definitely medical assistant. If you want to do that and you're not certified, you can definitely start a private practice, start there. And also medical mission trips are a really good way to get patient care experience if you're not certified in anything either. And you're looking for something to get like a large amount of hours in a short amount of time. I went on a medical mission trip to Peru through MedLife. MedLife is always doing medical mission trips. You can always go to their website. They usually give you around like 80 to 100 patient care hours for the week. And that was a really good experience because not only are you experiencing other cultures, and doing everything like that, you're doing a really great thing for the community there while also getting experience. So that was great.
Right. Do you think that PA schools look down upon these PCE jobs that don't require getting certified for?
Oh, no, not at all. Definitely not at all. The main thing with PA school is they require you to, have patient care experience because they want you to have a background in medical knowledge going into PA school to help your transition. That's why it's so different than medical school. Medical school, you have 4 years to obtain the knowledge. PA school, you have 2 to 2.5 years. So things are thrown at you. So they want you to at least have a little bit of a background so it's easier on you. But they don't
Right.
care if you're certified or not, just as long
Okay.
as you have something in your background.
Okay. Perfect.
Mhm.
Okay. So here are some direct OSU resources that I found are super helpful and just straight to the point. So the first one is I love the other pre-PA student org at OSU, which is called the Future Buckeye Physician Associates. They do so much as well with just sharing resources and opportunities, especially. So to find these Ohio-based PCE opportunities, I'd really recommend joining their GroupMe, which is on the QR code on the left. And honestly, just searching through the chat specifically for the word PCE, and then all the other students who share their clinic or that their office is looking for any medical assistants or PCAs, they're just all in one spot, and they'll most often leave their contact info in the same message. So just send them a message to follow up if they're still looking for anyone to hire, or if they had any friends at work who knew of any other places hiring. If not, so these positions are always being sent in the chat. So you can also wait for more to come up in the future. My second tip is also branching off of this first step. So I know we often voice the issue that as first gen students, we don't have the connections within the medical field. And I absolutely understand this through and through, and I support this, and I've felt these frustrations and how unfair it feels. Um, these issues are systemic, and we need to do a better job of making these resources more accessible. However, part of our journeys as first gen students is having to go to greater lengths to obtain these resources. And that's also okay too, because we truly are growing our resilience and dedication to our futures as PAs. The way that I have grown to see it is we're lucky to have such strength, and it will absolutely benefit our futures in such a difficult and rigorous field. So, part of this resilience and longing for opportunities is being proactive and reaching out. And you might say that you have no one to reach out to, or you don't know any pre PAs or PAs. I also said the same thing when I started, but here's a large pre PA student org at OSU, and there's also our student org and pre PA students. We are all going through the same things, the same requirements for PA school applications like PCE, shadowing, and everything else. So we will all be working somewhere or shadowing with a certified PA. So if someone seems super kind in any of these group meet chats, it never hurts to send a kind message asking if they've had any great PCE or shadowing experiences and if they could connect you with that PA or job. And most of the times, I've found that a majority of people are kind enough to want to help people who are also in their shoes, struggling to find these experiences and opportunities. It never hurts to put yourself in a vulnerable position. It truly only grows your character even more. That's what I've learned. Okay, so another aspect of our application is PA shadowing. A lot of PA schools will recommend shadowing, which is also a disguised way of saying that shadowing is required. So we shadow to be able to show that you have a good understanding of the PA profession and what PA healthcare services and just the career overall could look like for you. So the second question is, why is no one letting me shadow? Am I doing something wrong?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I get this question from a lot of people. And the answer is it's not your fault at all if someone's not letting you shadow. It's not anything that you're doing wrong. It's just that due to COVID, a lot of things have changed. A lot of people have made adjustments to their, staffing requirements, their room requirements. So some people are more, or sorry, not more, or less inclined to have people shadow them now. But that doesn't mean that no one's letting anyone shadow. It just means that you might have to look a little deeper into that area. So some things that helped me um, was at my school. I don't know if your guys' school does this, but at my school, in their pre-med department, they had a list of doctors and PAs that accept students to shadow them for one day. So what would happen is you would reach out to that doctor or PA, and you would choose three doctors or PAs, and at least one of them would get back to you. And you'd shadow them for a day. And I know shadowing for a day seems kind of, why am I just doing all this effort just to shadow for a day? But it actually sets you up for a future connection. And while you are shadowing them for a day, you can ask if you can come back to shadow. You just have to make sure that you're making a good impression and that you're very polite and formal. It also sets you up to, meeting other doctors and PAs while you're at that practice too. And, like I said, making a connection. It's all about connections in the shadowing field. That's primarily where it's at, which brings me to my another point. I've had some friends at their primary care office, they asked if they could shadow one of their doctors, and they said, yeah. So if you're at a primary care office that you visit regularly and you know the doctor that you visit, or if you know one of the other doctors or PAs there, you can always reach out to the office and just ask. It never hurts, and just see what they say. And at the medical nonprofit clinics that I used to volunteer at, some of them had doctors and PAs there as well who actually let them shadow, um, who let us shadow them for a day or multiple if we wanted it, if we weren't working. So if you volunteer somewhere that's a medical place and they have doctors or PAs, I would for sure reach out to them and ask if you can shadow them on a day when you're not volunteering or doing any schoolwork, because they're more inclined to say yes if they already know you. And as well, during COVID, I definitely saw a lot of people doing virtual shadowing opportunities through MedSembly. You can follow them on Instagram. They have a lot of great opportunities for virtual shadowing. Some schools will accept virtual shadowing, some will not. Either way, it looks great on your application if you have it. And this is a great opportunity to do while you're waiting to hear back from people to let you shadow them in person as well.
Awesome. That's so crazy that you brought up MedSembly because one of our people on our executive board is also working with she's part of MedSembly. So she
Oh,
does
that's
all their posts and
awesome.
everything. Yeah,
That's
what
great.
are the odds? Wow, we are so
Yeah.
connected.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, right. Okay, so when you are asking someone to shadow them, the main thing is to be polite, but also formal and professional. So this was the shadow email that I had drafted and sent to the PAs or doctors that I asked to shadow. So you just start out by saying either good morning or afternoon, Doctor, Miss, Mrs., whoever. And then how I did my letter, I said, my name is Danielle A, and I am a pre-PA student at blank university that would love to come and shadow you for a day. I have heard great things about your practice and your work. I am hoping to enhance my medical and patient care experience to prepare me for PA school. I know that by shadowing you, I will gain valuable knowledge, and this would help my pursuit to becoming a physician assistant. Please let me know if you have any questions. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much for your time. Best, Danielle. So, like I said, polite, formal, but it doesn't have to be a big letter. Just keep it brief, but get to the point as well. So they know what you're emailing them for. But if you're polite and formal, they're more willing to let you on to shadow them as well.
Great.
Mhm.
Awesome. So besides that, honestly, I don't have too much to add. My first step was um like I said, with getting patient care opportunities, you can also use the network of students and pre-PA orgs on any of their favorite shadowing experiences. And if those PAs are in any of your most desired fields, then kindly ask if you could be connected to them because it would be a super beneficial experience for you. My second step is just another method I like to try, or usually my default, is researching the PA online and then giving them a call at their clinic or workplace. So then you'll leave a message for the PA, just telling them a brief intro about yourself and if the PA would be willing to let you shadow because either this is your dream specialty or however else it could benefit you. The receptionist at their clinic will also most likely leave you the PA's contact information, or you should definitely ask, or you could also find it online. So then you could use Danielle's formal email example and then just send an email over right after the phone call. That's my usual recipe to doing all of this.
Yes. I'll add to that as well. After you send that email to them or after you give them a call, and if you don't hear back, it's okay to follow up like within
Right.
like a week and ask if since that you haven't heard anything, if there's anything to hear back from. It's okay to follow up.
Right. Okay, so this last struggle first generation students usually have is maintaining their GPA. GPA is also one of the biggest aspects of our applications, as our grades and work ethics prove to PA schools that we have a well built foundation to handle the rigorous workload of PA school. But when you're a first gen student and you're so busy worrying about paying off your tuition, registering for classes, filling out scholarship applications, securing housing, taking care of your siblings and family, and everything else on your plate, it's extremely difficult to navigate these courses and keep up with your academics in this new college environment while managing all of these other responsibilities. It truly is an information overload, especially for individuals with no previous college experience to fall back on. And I got this piece of advice from the PA platform, the founder of a PA mentorship, and a ton of other useful resources. But she says that the PAEA, which is the Education Association for PAs, they did the study and they pointed out that GPA is the biggest predictor of how a student will perform in PA school. This is why schools look at it so closely. It can be tempting to try to rush everything and to get all of your hours, experience, and shadowing all at once. But she says, don't let your grades sacrifice for doing all of this. It's better to take a break, take a gap year, go a little bit slower than to try and rush and have your GPA suffer because it's hard to come back from that. So, this third question is, I feel like everyone is doing so much better than me in my science prereqs. What are the biggest study habits, or how do I study to make sure that I keep up with these classes?
Yeah, great question. So I think what helped me study in undergrad, I had a little bit of a different study method. I used to write everything down on pieces of paper, but transitioning to PA school, it's definitely helped me to do, work on an iPad or digital notes just because they're faster.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but so with that being said, so when you have your class that day, whatever it might be, if you have two classes that day, one, I really recommend going home after class or to your apartment or library or wherever and studying the material that you learned that same day for at least an hour. Just to make sure that you are grasping the material, that you fully understand it. And if you don't, this allows you to highlight any of the material that you learned that you don't understand, and you can ask in the next class or you can email your professor that day. That really helped me understand the material right then and there. I felt like I got it pretty quickly. And if I didn't, then I wasn't falling behind because I would reach out to my professor or go to their office hours, which isn't bad at all. It's actually really beneficial if you ask for help as soon as you don't understand something so you don't lag behind. And if you go to office hours, that's great because then you can make that connection with your professor and they know that you might be struggling in an area and they might be more willing to help you that way. Another thing that helped me with studying actual material was making Quizlets. They work for me really good just because it helps with my active recall. Um, and it actually helped me like study while I was typing out the notes as well. This works for, a lot of people, but it might not work for you. My advice is to find something that works for you and stick to it. Don't try a bunch of different study methods because somebody else might say it's working for them. Find what works for you first and stick with it because it'll stick with you for all your other classes, I promise. And then another thing, what really helped me was studying with a small group of people that were in my class with me. We would probably study I'd say 2 hours before the exams when they happen, just to make sure that we grasp all the material. We would ask each other questions so that we're actually saying the material out loud and grasping it. And when you have a little small group that it might be on the same level as you, might be better, might be below, it doesn't matter. Everyone's at their own pace, but it adds to the discussion and it throws out ideas, and then you might help someone or someone might help you. So I always recommend a small study group. I say small because if you have too many people in the group, it might be distracting or it might be too stressful. But if that helps you, that's a great study method as well.
Right. Awesome. We have very similar study habits too. That's awesome.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I feel like it was only last semester when I felt like I finally cracked the code on how to actually study effectively. And this is also just another disclaimer that no one person studies exactly like how the other one does, but I generally feel like this is how my entire thought process goes from being overwhelmed and not understanding the lecture in class to finally understanding the concept. So let me walk you all through it. So, this first step, it usually goes like this. You're in the lecture hall or Zoom recording, and you're watching the lecture and taking notes, and everything's going by so fast, and it feels like you're drowning in all of this new information, right? That's also where I went wrong within my first year of like general chemistry and biology and anatomy lectures. So now I initially look a day ahead within the class schedule and make an effort to watch the videos, read the lessons, and watch YouTube explanation videos. There will always be a YouTube video to explain things, and this is honestly my favorite way of studying just because it's also visual. But I do all of this if I have time to try my best to understand everything. And this may seem like a lot to study all of this all on your own, but honestly, if you're stuck in lecture and you're confused and rushing to learn everything while it's just being fed to you live, um, it's super overwhelming. And you're eventually going to have to go through this process of going back and catching up and learning it all on your own, anyways. So, overall, this does save you some time. So, my second step is now that you have all of your notes set for lecture, I like making chapter reviews or really just writing my own notes on my iPad because that also instills the content even more in my head. But the way that I like to make these notes are with mnemonics that are super personal to me just because they're easier to remember. Um, I also ask myself, how might the professor ask about this concept on the exam? Can I find practice homework or quiz examples to also add to my notes? And for organic chemistry like classes or anatomy, I'll ask myself, how is this specific lesson or muscle, if you're in anatomy, similar and different to the other ones that we've learned prior? So, third step, so now you're set to go into lecture, and with your notes, you may have some more questions. So use this lecture time to listen to the lecture, review while you're listening to your professor live, and test yourself during the lecture. And if you find that you're a little weaker in some areas, then mark that down so you can ask later in lecture or to a TA or during office hours, like Danielle said. My fourth step, I used to be afraid of going into office hours as well because um I did not like my first year professors and I did not like their teaching style, and it's understandable because that's what drove me away. But I also realized that TAs are honestly usually better at explaining these concepts and giving us more tips on memorizing or whatever study habits they used when they studied these units just a few years ago when they were in that class. So it's nice to find a TA or professor, or honestly, go to a different professor's office hours with a friend that has that professor. I did this just just to find someone that you truly like and enjoy their teaching and explanation style, because that's more important to me. Um, so then, when you find a professor or a TA that you truly enjoy, ask them how they worked through these difficult concepts. And for any extra homework practice problems, quiz problems, exam questions, or other resources. I remember in my freshman year, like I said, I did not enjoy my professors' teaching styles or just their lectures in general. So I reached out to another professor and I asked if I could join their office hours. And oh my gosh, she was so, so kind. She was more than happy to. And she even sent me each of her exam reviews, which were different from my real professors. So that just helped me get a variety of what could be on the exam. So, yeah, that's typically how I run through my classes now. And I know it's a lot of work, but maybe you guys learn faster than I do. But this process really just solidifies everything for me. So pick and choose from any of these and implement them in your own personal way.
Yeah, those were great examples. Those were
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And I'll add to that. It is intimidating to go to office hours, especially if you have a professor that might not seem like they have the time of day, or they might
Yeah.
seem like they're kind of hard. But I will say that they do respect you for admitting that you're not getting something, and they will take their
Absolutely.
time to teach you for sure. So always ask
Absolutely.
questions. That's great.
Yeah. Um, so thank you so much for your time again, Danielle. I could not have asked for a better second episode with you.
I know. Thanks for having me. It's been
Of
a pleasure.
course, of course. We really appreciate all of your pre-PA advice and really having a mentor prove that all of this resilience and extra efforts with being a first gen student does pay off, and that your acceptance into PA school really is fuel for all of us. Um, you have been the pre-PA mentor of my dreams, and I am just so
So nice.
grateful and honored to have you here with me. So thank you so, so much again, Danielle.
Yeah, no, thank you for your time. And I hope that this podcast helps a lot of other people that might be having the same questions. And as always, you can, reach out to me on Instagram. You can always DM and ask me questions. I'm always here to help. But this was a great podcast, and really proud of you, Tiffany. This was
Thank
awesome.
you
So
so
good luck
much.
to everything with you. Of
Thank you. That means so much.
course.
Okay. If you enjoyed this second episode from our student org, please check us out on Instagram, on our Spotify podcast, and on our YouTube channel to rewatch or to listen to any of these. Thank you so much for being here and for listening. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.